Midnight Fears. First off, I would like to say that I am a fan of your channel and a subscriber. I'm sure you've had many submissions, so thank you for taking the time to read this. I've had many experiences in my life that would scare most people, but there are some which I'm willing to tell you for now. I hope you read this and put it in one of your videos. Here's one that happened to me that really freaked me out. When I was young, about 14, I was up late at night, which I always do. You see, I am nocturnal and function at my best when I'm up during the night and sleeping during the day. I prefer my waking hours to be 4 p.m. to 7 a.m. This is mainly for health reasons, but that's not important for this experience I'm about to share. So I won't go into specifics on what conditions I have, which make it hard for me to have normal sleeping patterns. Anyways, I awakened like usual, and the moment I woke up, I felt eyes on me, like someone was watching from afar. I didn't pay too much attention to the creepy feeling, as this was hardly the first time I felt that sensation. I was in my room, and it was like whatever that was watching me refused to come into the room with me. I felt a sense of relief about this. I had to do my routines, which are mainly online. Everyone else in the house was asleep at the time. It was about 12:30 a.m. or so. I decided to ignore the strange feeling I was getting from outside my room and just went on as usual. I was going to the bathroom, as that's part of my routine when I first wake up, and the feeling grew stronger. But again, the sensation was centered around the other side of the door, like whatever was watching me was just watching through the door, if that makes any sense to you. I get done, and I go on like nothing happened, ignoring it altogether. I logged into the family computer that we had at the time. While I was working online, I suddenly felt this gnawing sensation of something lurking right behind me. It was similar to what I was feeling before, but it felt stronger this time. That's when I realized it was actually in the room with me. I was horrified to hear the floor creaking, like someone was slowly walking towards me from the doorway. As a normal reaction, I quickly turned to see who or what was coming closer to me. There was nothing there, nothing out of place, and the feeling subsided. I turned back towards the computer and continued doing my thing, checking emails, responding to replies, doing what I call my rounds. This peekaboo game between me and my mystery observer continued for a few hours, until I realized that I had to go to the bathroom again. I ignored the urge for a while, but eventually I had to go. I reluctantly got up against my natural instinct and finally headed towards the bathroom, which unfortunately for me was all the way on the other side of the house. I had to basically walk straight through a mostly dark and empty house at about 3:30 a.m. to reach my destination. The long walk was not exactly soothing, considering I had the strong sensation I was being followed. Not hunted, mind you, just followed. Every time I spun around to look, all I would see was an empty room. I shrugged it off as random noises, mistaken instincts, and overly heightened senses. I was in the bathroom, and the sensation of being watched returned, only stronger this time. After I finished and entered the hallway to the left, the sensation became overwhelming and alarmingly became more menacing. I had the feeling like this thing was actually laughing at me. This did not scare me at the time, but actually just made me irritated. I felt more annoyed because it was like this thing was bluffing. I remained silent and just proceeded to walk to the kitchen sink to wash my hands. As I approached the sink, it felt like someone or something was right behind me, almost on top of me with every footstep. Whoever or whatever this was didn't feel much larger than me. It actually felt to be around my own size at the time, perhaps slightly taller. Every time I turned to confront it, I found nothing. I was starting to freak out, but just figured it had to be my imagination playing with me in a dark and empty house. I finally made it to the sink and started to wash my hands. About halfway through, I froze in fear when I heard a voice coming from behind me. It sounded more like a sigh, or even a coo, than any actual understandable words, mind you. It was faint, but loud enough to get my attention. Right after that sound, I had this instinctive voice telling me to not look up at the window. The window would act like a mirror in the lighting, allowing me to see what was behind me without having to turn and look. I hesitated a moment, but then my curiosity and general frustration just got the best of me. I looked up, and what I saw instantly paralyzed me with fear. I saw a woman. She was looking down over my shoulders. She was watching my hands as I washed them under the water. For some unknown reason, she seemed interested in what I was doing. She was extremely pale, just like a corpse. Her hair was long and appeared dark, black or really dark brown. Even though it was dark, I noticed her eyes had this eerie greenish hue. Her face was petite and slender. I could imagine her to be very beautiful under normal circumstances. She appeared to be sliding her hands on and around my waist. Then I could almost faintly feel her hands wrapping around my waist, like a lover would do, which is odd and creepy to say the least. Once she noticed I was frozen and stopped moving my hands, she began to look up. She then looked straight at the window to see our reflection. I think she realized I could see her reflection in the window. She stopped, looked right into my eyes, and let out this terrifying, loud shriek. She was right by my ear. I couldn't hear anything else. It was deafening. Her mouth was open wide, inhumanly so, to the point her skin started to stretch, and her eyes were trained right onto mine the whole time. Her teeth looked like a mix of sharp and flat teeth, which were somewhat long. Her hair began to wave wildly outward and shift colors like a neon light. Her dress was a torn and tattered white dress, from what I could see, but my view at the time was blocked by my own body. I was completely frozen at this point. I couldn't turn away. I was too shocked and afraid to move or even scream. This stare down lasted for what was probably about 15 seconds or so, but it felt a lot longer. Then she just vanished, like nothing was ever there. I just stared down at my hands, completely confused. I went back to the room and shut the door, making sure to keep the damn thing shut all the way. I placed pillows in the front of it to keep it from opening on its own. I'm not sure why I thought this would happen, but the thought of the door slowly opening on its own just terrified me at the time. I was totally shocked. I'm usually not easily scared, but this incident had my heart racing. I was still too freaked out, so I tried to get my mind off the incident by getting online and watching videos and whatnot. That entire night, I just couldn't stop thinking that whatever I just saw was still somewhere out there, maybe watching me. It was freaky. When dawn finally came, I told my mother what I just saw earlier that night. She wasn't surprised. Shocked, but not surprised. Why? Well, ever since I was 7 or so, I kept seeing this same woman appearing out of nowhere and vanishing just as quickly. Of course, not that close or in that much detail, but it was almost like she was trying to either scare me or tell me something important. But I think it's the former rather than the latter. And I notice upon reflection that she appears more often when I'm in a time of crisis or a bad point in my life, when I am at my lowest. I know that I'm not crazy because my mother and little brother have both seen and heard her, and we have even caught pictures and recordings of this entity. But unfortunately, due to technological limits of the time, we couldn't keep them or show them anymore because they either went missing, got destroyed, or just simply got thrown away due to failing to work after a time. The audio recordings we captured were of a voice sounding like a woman with a very raspy, choked sound to it.
I know you can't see me, but I'm standing right beside you.
It sounded as if she was being strangled as she tried to speak. One recording captured her yelling, "Listen to me, you," right after I said something. But I don't remember exactly what it was that I said to make her scream at me. I think I was getting irritated that we were getting nothing in response to our attempts to communicate with her. In the recording, though, you can hear it clearly. We all heard it at the same time as well. This woman has been haunting me for over a decade now and has done a lot to freak me out. We've heard a woman incoherently whispering. We have heard random bangs out of nowhere. Sometimes she's singing. And we have even heard growling. She has said malicious things in other recordings, like, "Patrick, die," as well as saying similar things about my family. Sometimes the speech we hear makes no sense and is too jumbled to understand, or maybe it's another language. Either way, it was pretty much just gibberish to me. It's not just me she messes with, but it appears I'm the one she's messing with most of the time, given I've seen and heard her more often than everyone else. I don't know why she's haunting us, or even who or what she is exactly. All I do know is she probably has not any good intentions for me or any of us. I am now 18, and this is still happening regularly. In fact, I'm feeling that same feeling as I type this very email to you, Midnight Fears. It may sound crazy, but it's like she knows I'm typing about her. I have somewhat grown used to her now, and have become more difficult to scare after all this jump scaring that was going on. So I'm able to keep my composure a bit better since that incident. I and my loved ones have other instances where we have seen her in the full outfit. We have all gave the same description before knowing what the other ones saw. It looks like an old 1800s dress, maybe older, but we think that's the era from what we could make out. Not extravagant or fancy, but just a simple one. Her dress is white with some patterns on it. Very tattered and worn though. Chunks of her lower portion of her skirt are pretty much gone. She looks like a fresh, pale corpse, and sometimes she appears as a rotting corpse, like in the middle of decay. Her legs are the oddest detail though. She has these weird brownish blackened boots on. The legs are usually very difficult to make out compared to the upper half of her body, which is much easier to see. Oddly, I had seen her legs once to appear to be more like bird or chicken legs instead of human. Another weird characteristic about her is she seems to have moods. Most of the time, she is malevolent. However, I have occasionally seen what I guess would be the good side to her as well. I've woken up halfway at times and seen her cradling my head, and when she sees me staring up at her, she just gives this pleased or loving smile. She looks like the fresh pale corpse every time in this type of encounter. This usually happens when I'm extremely tired, and for the most part I just pass out again and almost immediately. She's never aggressive in those circumstances. In fact, her presence felt more soothing and caring, like she was trying to console me. This is extremely confusing to say the least, given her actions the majority of the time. Not that I'm complaining, I'm actually somewhat relieved in these circumstances. I would much rather her come in that form than the more malevolent one. At least these encounters aren't so bad. Anyways, those are the experiences I wanted to share. I hope you read this, and I'm sorry if this email's too long. If you want me to tell you more about the various encounters I've had with this spirit, just reply saying so, and I will respond as quickly as I can, and I will tell you more. I hope you have a nice day, Midnight Fears. Sincerely, Patrick Lux.